Hey everybody, I hope you're having a good day and not getting too bored hanging out around the house. We're going to use an object that I'm sure you have plenty of right now to practice drawing reflections on a metal surface. Let's draw. I'm going to be using some Vine charcoal to show you how we can get some really nice reflections on this metal surface. So the first thing I'm going to do is just block in the shape of the can, sort of like a little contour drawing of it. I want to get those ellipses placed. Notice I put a center line going through them just so that they sort of stay in a nice relationship to one another. I've drawn that whole back of the can as if the can were transparent. The next thing that I want to make sure that I do is get in some shadow underneath the can. I love to do that early on because what that does is that makes sure that the can looks like it's grounded and like it's actually sitting on the table. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do, you always want to make sure that your ellipses don't have pointy edges. We don't want footballs, we want ellipses. Okay, so our light is coming pretty much straight down at it over here, so either side is going to have a little bit of shadow on it. Those are our dark areas, and we also have quite a bit of darkness on the inner part of the can. So I'm going to get that blocked in right from the start so that I don't forget. Okay, so we're just going to get that blocked in, and we're going to get some of those nice darker areas blocked in on the surface of the can as well. Okay, so it's going to look a little bit flat at this stage. I know everyone always panics when your drawing's not looking exactly the way you want it right from the start. We have to go through phases, and if you worry about just getting your nice big shapes blocked in at the beginning and then refining them later, you're always going to get a better end result. You can't do all of the detail first. You've got to get all the nice big forms blocked in before you can focus on surface texture. Okay, so we've got our can blocked in, the overall shape of it. So now we can start to work with some of that detail, like those ridges that are on the outer edge there. We're just going to use some nice gestural strokes to suggest them. Okay, we can go back in and we can refine everything once we get the overall shapes onto the surface. Okay, so now I'm going to shift gears just a bit, and I'm going to take some, you can either use compressed charcoal or a hard pastel. That's what I have here. This is just a black pastel, and I'm going to use that to go in and just enhance the darks. Okay, I want to make my darkest darks really visible because this is going to help to give the entire drawing a lot more depth and a lot more dimension. That inside of the can, okay, that gets really nice and dark. Look at how much more depth we have as soon as we start to get those really, really nice dark shapes in there. Now the same thing with where it meets up with the table. Okay, our shadows are always the darkest where they're closest to the object itself. My cat's running around, but that's probably what you hear, but ignore him. He just wants to get in on the action. Okay, let's get a little bit more of that in there. And in here, that's where it's really, really nice and dark. Now we look like we can actually enter that can if we wanted to. Okay, I'm seeing some more shadow in some of these areas right here. And I'm going to just suggest some of those little ridges by putting some little marks down there. Notice how I'm sort of following that nice curvature that we have here. Okay, as I move the pastel along, I'm going to start to suggest a little bit more of some of those little indentations. Okay, now the next thing that I'm going to use, this is a white pastel, and what this will do is allow me to get some of those really, really strong, intense highlights on the can. Those are always so important whenever you have anything that is either transparent or reflective. If you can get your highlights to really pop, that's going to really help to bring that surface texture to life. So let's get a little bit of that on here. Okay, so I can see there's those two sort of lines that are up in this area. Those are both very, very light. And I can actually layer some of this pastel on top of the charcoal that I've already put down. Okay, and then what I want to do is I want to use this to really start to put a little bit more definition on some of those ridges. Okay, so now we're starting to get a little bit more of that metallic feel. And I'm actually going to just lightly drag some of this, this pastel over some of the charcoal that's already on the surface, lightly, so that it's almost like a transparent layer that, or a translucent layer that we can see some of the charcoal through, but it's just a little bit lighter than some of the other parts of it. See how it starts to get a little bit of that metallic sort of a shimmer to it? Okay, and then let's just throw in a little bit of some white around here, now right up to that shadow as well, just to make it feel like it blends a little bit more gradually. Okay, I just want to fix that up. Oh, right in here, we've got a beautiful sort of a rounded reflection. Okay, I want to get that, and I want to really enhance that bit of highlight that runs up the side there. Okay, let's try this with a few more of these little dots. Okay, this down in here, this also has a fair amount of light on it, and that light, what that's coming from is that white piece of paper that's underneath it. I intentionally put that there because if I didn't have that there, what would happen is the can would look like it was, oh, pretty much all the same sort of a value of a middle gray, and I wanted to have some nice reflections to work with. So that's why when you set something up, if you're drawing something that has a metallic reflective surface, make sure that you light it properly and that the things that you put around it give it more interest rather than making it just look like a flat gray object. Okay, so that's just a little tip for you on how to set things up. Okay, we're almost done. You can always, charcoal, pastel are always very, very forgiving media to work with. Okay, so anytime anything is not quite looking the way that you want it to, you can always go back in, especially with your lights, because your light values can sit right on top of the darks, so that if you put down, oh, a black mark somewhere that you don't want it, it needs to be lighter. It's the opposite of watercolor, where you can just go right on top of it with your light and make things pop. So the darker that you can get in some places, the better. You can always lighten things up, but if you don't have all those darks, you won't have all that nice depth and dimension that you want your drawing to have. Okay, now I'm going to call this done because, as you know, I always feel very, very strongly about stopping sooner rather than later, because once it's overworked, you can't go back. And that's it. Well, that was fun. I never get tired of making metal come to life on paper, and I'm sure you will too after you've practiced for a while. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.